I couldn't play the game like everybody else played it. Before I even stepped on that mound, I had to be a good fielder.
Most pitchers only dream of throwing a no-hitter. But those are only the players with two hands. So how did this man, with only one hand, do it? This is the story of the only one-handed pitcher who made MLB history. As a child, Jim had hopes and dreams of becoming a baseball player. But there was only one problem. He was born with only one hand. For you and I, baseball requires us to use both hands. But that didn't stop Jim from dreaming big. With the love and support from his parents, they encouraged Jim to play sports, where he would quickly pick up soccer because it didn't require Jim to use his hands. But in the end, it never stuck, and eventually Jim's parents gave into his love for baseball and started him off like the rest of us by buying him his very first baseball glove. In an attempt to make life easier, once Jim started school, he was fitted with a mechanical hand made of fiberglass and metal. But he hated the prosthesis, seeing how it not only put a target on his back, but also made the other kids scared of him. Eventually, his parents put an end to the prosthesis, making him wear it. At age 11, Jim joined a Little League team, and he made outperforming the competition look easy. In his very first game, he threw a no-hitter, and if that wasn't a sign for what the future holds. Despite his early success, many were still hesitant about his future due to his disability. According to Jim himself, "I was a kid who really wanted to fit in," Abbott says on his website about growing up with a disability. "Sports became a way for me to gain acceptance. I think that fueled my desire to succeed. I truly believe that difficult times and disappointments can push us to find abilities and strengths we didn't know existed without the experience of struggle." So with that, Jim knew that in order for himself to beat the competition, he had to outwork them. So Jim's disability not only forced him to work harder than most, but every chance he was on the mound, he had to prove to everyone that he belonged.
Start off by catching the ball like this, catch the ball, kind of rotate it around, pulling the ball out, and throwing.
That was just the start of Jim's path to the majors. Because once Jim got to college, he had to prove himself all over again as he attended the University of Michigan. Jim was already making history through his amateur career, becoming the only player ever to receive the Sullivan Award for being the top amateur athlete in the entire country. But before Jim would eventually ditch one cap for another, he would walk away with leading his Wolverines to 2 championships. Jim was so dominant that he was inducted into the College Baseball Hall of Fame in 2007. Then in 1985, hard work would finally pay off. During the first round of the 1985 MLB draft, Jim's name would be called, changing his life forever. Now in the starting rotation for the Angels, it's no surprise that during his first year in the MLB, Jim pitched a 3.92 ERA. But only a few seasons later, the Angels were playing like trash, finishing in last place with a .500 record. And as for Jim, there was very little he could do, winning only 18 games and crowning himself with the 4th lowest ERA in the entire American League at 2.89. And if things couldn't get any worse, Jim had an even worse ERA of 2.77. So it came as no surprise that later that offseason, Jim was traded. But next, coming off his worst outing of the '93 season, once Jim became a Yankee, he did something nobody saw coming that made MLB history forever. It was September 4th, 1993, New York Yankees versus Cleveland Indians. From the start, inning after inning, Jim was perfect, walking 5 and striking out 3, securing an easy 4-0 dub for the Yankees.
And the ground ball to short. Velarde. He did it. He did it. No-hitter for Jim Abbott.
But not only was Jim the only disabled player ever to throw a no-hitter, but he also pulled off the first no-hitter thrown by a Yankee, at the time, in over 10 years. Because in the very same year, Jim became global, making his first television series debut on a '90s sitcom, Boy Meets World, quickly becoming a household celebrity. But even with this being one of the greatest moments of Jim's career, everything would change in 1999 when Jim signed with the Brewers during the interleague play era. Jim would now be forced to come out of his comfort zone even further, with it now being required of him to hit as well as pitch. But wait, how does a man with only one hand hit a bat, let alone hold it? I mean, what the hell does that even look like? Well,
here's Abbott now. He took Lieber to a full count in the second inning before going down on the strikeout. Lined over the shortstop. Jim Abbott's first major league hit, and it's going to score a run, baby. Jenkins to third. He's out at for third base.
But as impressive as what Jim does on the field, off the field, he's changing lives. Jim teamed up with KidWorks to help kids with disabilities just like himself across the world. And as of recently, Jim is still changing lives by becoming a motivational speaker giving speeches around the world. But as much good as Jim was doing in the world, that didn't stop one man from praying for his downfall, George Steinbrenner. See, at the time, Steinbrenner accused Jim of not dedicating himself fully to baseball, and that his charity work outside of baseball was a distraction. But not every player is an inspiration like Jim. There are some players that are straight up trash, from plays like these to these. And I know you want to hear more about that. So what are you doing? Click it.